Okay, we are recording and the meeting has started. Welcome everybody. Again, my name is Dean Greenleaf. I'm a building plans examiner with the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections. This is a presentation for voluntary home earthquake retrofits, specifically for the project impact prescriptive method or prescriptive project permit. Well, bless you. And most people here are going to be muted when you come in. If you would like to be unmuted, or if you have a question, you're welcome to type the message into the chat box, and we'll try to answer those. You can also raise your hand if you'd like, and I will unmute you. Working with me here today is Amy Barnett. She is also a senior building plans examiner and one of my colleagues here at the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections. All right, so I think we've got the recording going. We've got the meeting started. I'm going to go ahead and go to presentation. You should see the project impact logo. All right, so let's start off with a question just to see if everybody's out there. How many homeowners do I have out there today of the 41 participants? You want to try to raise your hand if you are a homeowner, or put it in the chat box. Take your time.
I see a couple.
And
to raise the hand, again, do people know how to do that? I think you have to hover over your name and then, let me see if I can raise my hand.
Yeah, do you want to show them that real quick?
If you go to the, you select participants, you want to be able to see the participants over on the right-hand side, lower right-hand corner. There's a thing that says participants in blue. If you click that, then you can open up the participants window and it gives you a list of everybody. And then if you find your name and hover over it, there's a little hand. So I'm going to raise my hand now, and then my hand goes up, and then I can lower my hand after my question has been answered.
Well, good. I see several hands up. That's great. Thank you, Paul. Adam. Fantastic. Talia. Jennifer, I'm going to say Grasso there. Nice. Richard. You got a lot of homeowners. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right. Again, I will pause periodically to open up for questions either through chat or through raising your hands, and then we'll have a Q&A afterwards. Okay. So the SDCI, or Seattle Department of Construction Inspections, is a place I'm pretty proud to work at. In a nutshell, we are helping people build a safe and livable and inclusive Seattle, and this is a part of that. The purpose of the project impact earthquake home retrofits is to improve building performance, and specifically improve it during an earthquake. Does not earthquake proof your home, but it does improve the resistance to a seismic event, and the idea is to reduce damage. We've worked with the prescriptive permit to reduce the permit cost and to try to simplify the process. The project impact can be done by contractors, homeowners, and just about everybody if you are familiar with the plan set and use the complete drawing set. There are other cases where an engineered solution would be more appropriate. Also, we always recommend, if you have any questions, hire a professional, either architect or engineer. Bottom line of that was to promote the public health, safety, and public health, safety, and welfare, and that's you. So kind of wondering out there, how many people here were in Seattle during the Nisqually earthquake? If you could raise your hand, let me know if we had people that were there. It was 2001 Nisqually earthquake. Okay, Catherine.
I see several people. Evan, Coleman, Amanda, Jeff, Rose.
All right.
Good number of people here.
Yeah. So that brought earthquake home retrofits into kind of the forefront. It also talked about several things with commercial buildings, brick facades, and brick chimneys. Our discussion today is going to focus on residential construction, but it's always good as part of the public health and safety. If you are in an earthquake, remember two things: stop, drop, cover, and hold. And then beneath, beside, or between. When I was growing up in elementary school, they talked about getting into a doorway, and that is no longer something that they recommend. It is better to get next to something to protect yourself, or beneath a desk, so that you're protected from what often causes injuries, which is falling debris, ceiling tiles, glass, stuff like that. So if you're in an earthquake situation, beneath, beside, and between.
Dean, your presentation is not showing for some reason here.
Oh, hold please. And share. Okay, thanks for catching that.
Now it's back, but not in the full screen.
Okay, well, I can fix that part.
Bear with us, guys. This is the first time we've done this thing remotely, so still working out all the technical glitches here.
Well, if that was the only one we're going to have, I'm feeling pretty lucky so far. All right, so we're familiar with beneath, beside, between, and then of course you want to have a personal preparedness kit. What I would recommend, in addition to the personal preparedness kit you can find online or at Costco, is to have a pair of shoes. Also, in the case of an emergency, it's good to have a non-local contact, somebody you can text in case phone lines are having issues. The idea of an event where you have earthquake or flood or tsunami is something that is more familiar now, and certainly closer to our hearts now. But taking care of you and your family, getting a personal preparedness kit is important. Part of that is protecting your home, and that's where the home retrofit comes into play. So in this, the improved resistance to a seismic event, single family homes, one of the best places to improve building performance is actually where the building meets the ground. So when the ground shakes, the connection that the building has to the foundation and to the ground becomes extremely important. And a better connection, a stronger connection, is a very good idea. So the retrofits we're going to talk about today are kind of focused around where those big arrows are, right at the ground level. So the elevation of the house on the right, you'll see those are typical seismic forces. The largest ones are right at the ground level. I would say come into the Applicant Services Center, but right now we are still 100% virtual. We do have a very good Q&A, question and answer service, and the project portal allows the application and permit issuance and review to be 100% digital online. This is kind of what we're looking to avoid. This is from the 1994 earthquake in California. The project impact drawings are based off of the FEMA drawings that were originally done after the California earthquake, and in response to stuff like this. That was the Northridge earthquake, started in about 1994. Again, this is a little bit of the project impact history. More of that is on our website. So, all right. Project impact, the earthquake home retrofits are looking to resolve some common structural issues. The foundation, the connection between the home's exterior wall and that foundation, or the short wall that's between the foundation and that first floor. The short wall, either in a crawl space or in an unfinished or finished basement, that goes between the concrete foundation wall and that first floor wood framing, is often called a pony wall. Some people will also call it a cripple wall because it is not a full height wall. but in this case, both are applicable. Okay. So I'm going to pause here and just see if there are any questions so far, any chats.
Some people were asking about the presentation, if the presentation was available. So it is recorded. We are recording, and so it will
This
be
is,
available
yes,
on our website.
this will be
And
mhm.
yeah, and then the Applicant Service Center. Someone asked, does it serve Thurston County? No, this is a City of Seattle building department service, but we
Yeah,
still
that
provide this information for people.
sure. And this is a great place to start. I'm sure Thurston County has their own requirements, or they may be using a similar set of drawings that they have applied to their permit process there down south. So good question. Yes, excellent.
Yeah, and someone also, Catherine was asking, where is the pony wall? Do you want to
Uh,
explain that? It's kind of hard to see in this picture, but
It is, because the pony wall is so short. So there's a dark area here, I guess, where my cursor is now, that is between the concrete solid foundation and that wood framed floor. That is what they would call the pony wall. And I'll
mhm.
provide another couple examples and pictures of this as well that might help with that. Thank you, Catherine. That's a very good question. If my next couple of slides don't answer it, please let me know if you need more clarification.
And
Oh,
Coleman reminded us that we should have shoes for our emergency kit. Yes, you don't want to be stepping on anything dangerous.
well, I didn't have them originally, and I realized that, the emergency kit under my bed is great, but if I have to run outside in the middle of the night, it would really be nice to have shoes. So
Hmm.
yeah, I would recommend that. Downtown here is also, if going outside is not necessarily a very good idea at all. For home earthquake retrofits, we're focusing specifically on residential construction, and specifically on residential light frame wood construction. If you have a brick house, or if you have a house that has a lot of plaster or adobe, or if you have a tile roof, you probably want to start with talking to somebody through the Q&A, or um, let me know, and I can let you know if this is still an option for you. Those things can have an impact on how your house will react.
Julie was asking about a one-story cinder block home built on a slab, and that would be a different.
It,
This presentation is for mainly for wood frame
mhm.
construction.
Yeah,
So,
the cinder block would be its own unique situation, and a slab floor, depending on how that's connected. That is a very good question. The project impact is based for wood frame homes, but there are seismic options for the cinder block home. You just may not be able to use this prescriptive plan set. But again, you can ask through the Q&A, and also let me know. My emails at the end of this presentation. So we are recording, and you should be able to review this and review the specific slides. Maybe at some point we will put a link to the SDCI website on our page, but I think most of you have been there. That's how you registered for this presentation. So very good questions. Nice.
we're getting a lot of coming in. I don't know if you want to address all these now, Dean, or
I'll do another
so.
couple of slides, and then I'd be happy to stop again. Are there any you think I should answer now, or should I go another couple?
Brick foundation, I guess
Ooh, yeah,
they're.
that's a tough one. Brick foundations are real unique animals, and if it is reinforced, it may be possible, but by the time it's determined to have adequate reinforcing, you've already involved somebody, a professional. So those are very interesting and often very robust foundations, but this is something that typically for the project impact drawings, it's light frame on a simple concrete foundation. There's also
Mhm.
a case, maybe this will answer another question that's in there, is if you have a cinder block foundation or a concrete masonry unit foundation, sometimes they would fill every other, or they would fill the blocks and reinforce them sporadically. Those are, again, kind of iffy because we just don't know exactly how they were constructed. So often the project impact drawings have to limit the foundation to a specific height or a specific type, just to make it more applicable, well, to make it work basically as a prescriptive plan set. If there's other items, retrofits are still very possible, but it may be time to hire either a professional or an engineer, or do a voluntary seismic retrofit in another permit.
Okay.
Good
We do
question.
have some people were asking if we could continue with
Sure.
the presentation more and then
Yeah.
focus on the questions at the end, and that probably makes sense
Sure.
if we can move forward.
Okay. So the openings is an example of a garage or a portal frame. And then here is another example. The foundation stayed where it is and the house moved to the left. The picture on the left there shows just a little bit of a change, but the house, all of the plumbing, the gas piping, and the electrical of the house, it just slid off of its foundation. So I'm hoping this is one of the questions is, do all houses need to be retrofitted? If your house is built after about the 1980s or the early 80s even, then, well, about the time I graduated high school, then you're probably going to have enough of a seismic connection and a retrofit connection to that foundation that you're fine. You can compare the current construction the construction to current residential codes, and get an idea on when that house was built. So, for example, the house, the real skinny house there in Ballard on the right, doesn't need it because it was the required connections already exceed what would be required under the voluntary seismic retrofits. The house on the left probably would require a seismic retrofit. It was built in 1865. A good hint is the car out front. Does anybody know what street that's on? Anybody have an idea? Anybody raise your hand? Not so much.
Don't
Believe it
see
or,
any hands.
believe it or
Oh,
not,
wait,
that
someone said Fourth Avenue. She tallied it.
yes. Oh, that is fantastic. Yes, that is Fourth Avenue. Looks very different today. That house is now a side parking lot for the Rainier Club. So very good. All right. The project impact and voluntary seismic retrofits are basically aimed to do three things: anchor, brace, and connect. So on the left, you'll see the anchoring to the concrete foundation in gray, the foundation bolting and anchor bolts. The center picture here, this is to brace the walls that are below that first floor. We were talking about the pony wall. The pony wall is that area where it says ventilation holes and you see the panel. That is the pony wall. And then the floor framing is on top of it. So you start off with a foundation, an anchor plate, a sill plate, and an anchor to that foundation, bracing that wall, and then connecting real well to that first floor framing. So I'll say this several times: anchor, brace, and connect. So Project Impact is available on our website. We have a specific page for it, and it came with several volumes of items that you can do to see how your project qualifies and to get a better idea on how it works. Best thing to do under our permits we issue, we have earthquake home retrofit permit, or you can just Google earthquake home retrofit permit. Either way will get you to that Seattle Department of Construction Inspections page, and specifically this page, which will run you through it. Talk about how much it costs, talk about what drawings are required. It will have a set of the drawings, which we'll take a brief look at here later, and have information on what we consider a pony wall, definitions of items, and stuff like that. This is a very handy page. Okay, so how we doing? Amy, is there anything I need to answer?
I'm answering. Someone was asking if what you meant by qualify, and I think it just means qualifies as the type of project that can use this
Yes.
prescriptive approach. It's not a financial benefit or anything.
No, there are some places originally Project Impact did have a financial component through it. But right now the benefit is a reduced permit fee. But you would have to talk with your local agency as far as any type of homeowner insurance benefit or other items. That's not something we police or we're really involved with. The permit and the construction itself is what we're looking at. This is a plan reviewed project that uses a specific 20-page plan set, but we're focused on the construction. So that's a really good question. When I say does it qualify, the prescriptive plan set has specific limitations to when it works. And if you have questions on that, then, or if there's something that's iffy, then you probably want to hire a professional. But I'm going to run through really briefly the primary pages of the voluntary project impact plan set to give you an idea on how that works, and hopefully so that you can take a look or download it yourself and see if your house might qualify. Okay, that's focusing on the checklist, the floor plan, and then the requirement summary, table 1. If you open up the project, it should look like this. This is the first page of it, S1 of 20. This is the cover sheet. We have it at 11 by 17. If you print it at 8.5 by 11, it's going to be pretty hard to read. But the 11 by 17 is something that can be printed and shown to the inspector in the field. The checklist, the page most often skipped, and probably one of the most important, actually. The checklist is divided into 2, either home characteristics, and then the other one is to identify the needs for your home. So the checklist is specifically, the qualification requirements are, will this work? Questions 1 to 11 help you determine, is this something that would work for your home? The idea is it of light wood frame construction? Is there a foundation? Are there pony walls, or are the pony walls limited in height? Tall pony walls create a problem. How many walls are above the foundation? Basically, how many stories it is. And does it have a lightweight roof? Heavy tile roofs can become a problem. So on the right, we have a project. It is of light wood frame construction. Let's see, it looks like it probably has a foundation, might have a foundation that's a little tall. The pony walls there might be over 4 feet, but wow, nice house. So that is the original Yesler Mansion up on Capitol Hill. I particularly like the turret on the upper right side there. But this might be something that would start to exceed it just because of the number of floors or the height of that foundation wall. So there are 3 areas that where people do improvements and where improvements are made to existing houses. On the left, you'll see a lighter new sill plate that was placed underneath the house to help connect it to the foundation. In the middle there, that middle picture is a very square cut short pony wall that they would then put panels over and brace it so that it's a better connection between the concrete and that first floor framing above. And then on the right, you have an example of typical wall framing. All right, so creating the braced wall, even if it's pretty short, the oriented strand board there is a good example of one of the panels that they'll put in. And then underneath it, those silver, interestingly shaped anchors, that is what's known as a flexible side anchor. And that's a case where they actually come in from the side and connect the wood sill plate to the concrete foundation below. How are things going?
We had Jeff had a question. You had a question about that, anchoring procedure. Jeff, can you
Mm-hmm.
repeat? Let me see if I can find his question.
Sure.
Something about the yeah, okay. Jeff, he has a 1955 house with a basement,
Mm.
8-inch poured walls with non-secured 2x4 pressure treated plates. Looking at the Simpson hardware, this requires 2x6 on an 8-inch wall. Is there an approved detail with a PT spacer block? Maybe we can deal with that afterwards because it seems very specific unless you know right offhand, Dean.
I don't know off the top of my head, other than there are spacers that are used, and there are anchors that can be 2x4s that are either not secured to the concrete or just spout that were put into it when it was wet. Sometimes even well, it was pressure treated, but sometimes can be an issue because of the age of the wood, or if the wood itself is deteriorated. 2x4s can work as sill plates, but that would be something on a case-by-case basis. It's a good question. That would be something to ask the Q&A, or better yet, try to get a picture of it and then talk to somebody here. The project impact seismic retrofits have several details. Check out the sheets there, their details of the sill plate connection, and see if one might, match what you have in your basement. Good question. All right. Can everybody see the floor plan? Anybody who can't, I guess, please say and raise your hand or put it in the chat box there. So the floor plan does a couple of things. You want to measure and kind of mark your existing crawl space or foundation, basement area. You want to show kind of the existing conditions and then show what improvements are going to be made. So this becomes kind of a key plan and shows both the existing layout and what improvements are going to happen. They provide kind of a blank sheet with the grid, and it would be a floor plan to scale. We're looking for a north arrow, and then of course address, parcel number, and legal description. Here's a really good illustration of what a crawl space can look like. You see the anchor bolts on the left-hand side going into the concrete foundation wall. They're calling it a cripple wall, the cripple or pony wall there labeled on the left-hand side. I hope that's helpful. And then the plywood shear panel, and then connections all around the outside of the building to the first floor framing. Project impact is focused on the exterior wall, specifically the exterior wall and floor framing where it meets the foundation. It would be a very good idea to create plates or to anchor the posts that you see here. That is not something that's part of the project impact requirements. We would of course recommend it, but it's not part of the calculations for what they're doing. The math is based on improving the perimeter. Okay. This does need to be to scale. Does need to show all the windows or exterior openings, accesses, vents, things that may get in the way. Okay. So I can come back to this page if you'd like. The number of floors above that area, above that crawl space, are limited to 3 for project impact. If the pony wall is above a certain height, it counts as 1, and that's often becomes an issue. So if you have a 2-story house and a 4-foot pony wall, that would need to meet the 3-story condition on this table. So the minimum requirements are based on whether or not you have a 1 floor, 2 floors, or 3 floors above that foundation. And that would include the tall pony wall. When I coach people on this project, I go over this chart quite a bit. This is laying out what improvements you're going to be doing to both the anchors into the foundation, the pony wall bracing, and framing clips. I also recommend be sure to read the footnotes. If the pony wall or the bracing panel is not 2-to-1, or if the pony wall is fairly tall but still you're not able to provide enough bracing for that length of exterior wall, it may be possible to use the prescriptive detail 2F, which allows you to provide tighter nailing and more anchors. It looks like this. At that point, I recommend talking to somebody, but it is an option. We're trying to make the prescriptive work for as many houses as we can. Okay. The application process for voluntary seismic retrofits, especially with the project impact, it is a plan review project. You will need a portal account. You would start the process just like you would for any construction project. The preliminary application is the same, but what happens is you present and submit the complete 11x17 set of 20 pages for screening. If it's screened and determined that it looks like it'll work as a project impact, you pay a flat fee and it comes in and is reviewed. If the screening has questions or if the screening has issues, it is determined before the project is brought in.
Hey, Dean,
Yes.
since we're not doing paper plans, you mentioned 11x17, it would just be a PDF or something.
You're right. Yeah, the PDF is 11x17. And I'm under such a habit. Oh my gosh, I've been here too long. The paper plans are not being accepted. This is all electronic. So what happened is you'd submit the 20-page PDF. You'd have the plan set added and you'd circle the details of where they are, and then you submit it for screening. The nice thing is that it's a flat rate, and also you don't need an intake appointment for this. This can come in and be reviewed without having to wait for an intake. Permit process, I can talk a little bit more in Q&A as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the resources, here are our resources and websites. Interesting. Okay.
And from this website, they can get that link to the plans. That was one of the questions that came up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if you go to our website and under permits we issue, go to the letter E, go to earthquake home retrofit, I think is what it's under. One of the links there is to the actual plan set itself, and that you can download as a PDF and either draw on it and scan it and make it digital, or if you can manipulate it as a PDF, you can do that too. Okay, so in summary, what we're looking at is the project impact is a home retrofit for a prescriptive approach to construct improvements to existing homes. Wish they would have done that here. The idea is to have a general plan set that a homeowner can use, contractors can use, to provide earthquake home retrofits and improve the performance without necessarily having to contact an architect or engineer. It does not earthquake proof the home, but it improves performance. So that concludes my quick presentation here of the project impact plan set and the process for the prescriptive earthquake home retrofits. I'd like to open it up for questions. I know we have several And if you want me to go back to specific slides, I can do that too.
It looks like Brian asked a question. He has retrofit plans created by an engineering firm, so those would work.
Yes.
The the project impact is intended for homeowners who don't necessarily want to hire an engineer. But if you have an engineer, if you have engineered plans, that's great.
Yeah, yeah, that is. An engineered plan set it depends on the complexity of the project, but it may be possible if you have an engineered plan set or an engineered detail of the work that they want to do to actually apply for an electronic subject to field inspection permit, which is also a type of permit that we issue without an intake appointment. And it is done and screened here, but it is actually reviewed in the field. So as far as permits that we issue, it's probably the fastest permit. So yeah, engineering can really help.
Let's see. Anybody have questions that were not addressed that we missed here in the chat? How much, Jim asked, how much does a retrofit permit cost? Do you have any idea on that, Dean?
I can't, the presentation that I give, it changes every year slightly. It is basically 1 hour of our time. And as of January, that went up. I'm going to say a ballpark would be a couple $100. Give you
Based on the 1 hour of review
based
time.
on 1 hour of our review time and the standard state fee. It's a couple $100, give or take, as a flat rate if the project impact works as such. That's a good question, and that is one of the benefits if you take the time to use the project impact drawings and draw your own floor plan, and do the legwork to count up how many anchors you're going to need and what type of details you're going to need. The project impact actual permit cost is not that great. The real savings for the project impact is often on engineering costs, because you don't have an engineer that you've paid to analyze the house. Having said that, sometimes engineers can save you money on hardware or can provide a detail. This prescriptive approach is going to be very conservative, and an engineer may be able to provide a more simple solution. That's a good question. Thank you.
Let me see. Oh, Maximilian was asking, is there anything in project impact for retrofitting of decks that are attached to the house?
That's a really good question. Decks are more of a post and beam construction, and they are not part of the project impact plan set. In fact, the project impact analysis stops at the exterior wall of the home. If you want to beef the deck and keep the deck from swinging away from the house, or increase the connection to the house, I would recommend talking to a professional.
There is, you can get some standards for, code compliance standards. It's actually in our residential code for the kind of details that you need to make your deck code compliant.
That's a very good point.
Through the American Wood Council, there's a prescriptive residential wood deck construction guide for those people who are handy and want to do this themselves. So look at the Seattle Residential Code, which adopts some of these details. And then this guide from the American Wood Council, I just put a link up there, has some good details to show how you can have your deck attached to your house so it's not going to fall off during an earthquake.
Yeah, or a very large New Year's party. That's a very good point. And both of those are excellent resources to improve or to meet current building code requirements.
So Paul, do you see Paul's question there, Dean?
I don't.
Or
Let me
are
go
you
ahead.
not seeing the questions? Paul's saying, so to summarize, so go to the SDCI website, download PDF of project impact plan set, fill it out with my computer, and then send it back to you. That's kind of it. You've got to first make sure that your house would work with this approach. And then,
Yes, you do a preliminary application, and I think they're looking for a key plan or just kind of a location plan so that the address, parcel number, and legal description are correct, and we know that we're working on the right house at the right address. And then what you do is the project impact drawings are uploaded for screening. You're exactly right. You download them, fill them out, make them specific, how you're specifically going to use those for your house, and then submit them for screening through the project portal. Excellent. Yeah.
there's probably there are some forms that you also need to fill out to complete your application.
Yes, I think there may be, what is it, the waste salvage assessment or something like that. And then there's the owner's authorization letter. There's a couple standard forms, I'm pretty sure, that are part of every permit we issue. But they talk about that both in the project impact, and then they will tell you when you submit for screening, you'll get an email back saying, that looks good, please fill out the following forms. They'll also let you know if there's a bill to pay. Good question, Paul.
So Coral, oh wait, let's see, Jeff, project impact does not address 2x4 plates on an 8-inch wall. I'm not certain about that. Do you know, Dean? I think typically you need a 2x6.
You would. You're always welcome to submit what's there. But the 2x4 plates, if it's not part of the standard detail, can be a problem because the project impact requires you to use a specific set of details. If you have a 2x4 wall, I would probably talk to somebody first before you submit that as a part of a prescriptive plan set. Good
And
question.
then, let's see, Coral is asking if you have a daylight basement with full height walls.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that would save me money on engineering? I mean, would it qualify for project impact? Or is project impact limited to those 4-foot pony wall houses?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right there, Amy. The project impact right now is limited to 4 feet between the foundation wall and that first floor framing. If you have a full height foundation wall, then that actually works fine because there is no framed wall between that and the first floor framing. If you have 3 full height foundation walls or foundation walls with pony walls or cripple walls that are under 4 feet, and 1 wall that is fully open as part of the daylight basement, it may be possible to have an engineer look at just the 1 wall, that 4th open wall that's full height. But once you hire an engineer, usually it's easier and cheaper just to have them do a detail for the entire building. Project impact will allow you to engineer up to 2 walls, but that means that you're doing both the prescriptive and the engineered approach, and that can get a little bit more expensive. It's a good question, Coral. As far as saving money on engineering, what I would probably recommend is starting off with talking to somebody at Q&A or send me an email about kind of what you would like, the size of the building, kind of how many stories is it, and then we could probably guide you as far as if an engineer is going to be a good bet, or if project impact might be something to pursue. Good question. I see one other here from Coleman Bronner, I think. How to hire a contractor and/or what would save you? Oh, sorry. How to hire a contractor and or engineer to do the work and the permitting. So I don't have any recommendations, nor as a city employee can I make specific recommendations. What I would say is that you could always go to the Washington Association of I'm sorry, the
Like the
Seattle.
contractors?
I was going to say like the Seattle Master Builders or the American Institute of Architects will have recommendations. Where could they go to find a good engineer or architect? Do you have an
Uh,
idea?
yeah. We're not supposed to recommend specific firms. Um,
Yeah,
I
but
guess you could try, even like Angie's List or someplace like that, or, one of those
mhm.
kind of places where your neighbors are recommending. I mean, there are a lot of firms out there who specialize in this, and it's probably good to go with somebody who's done a lot of similar projects and knows what they're doing.
You could look for
Um,
somebody who's experienced or somebody who has specifically works with this type of project. That might be a good way to look at it as well. Um, yeah, I would recommend going with a group or an association and getting a recommendation with somebody that knows the contractor and can give you a better recommendation than I would.
Because yeah, there are a lot of contractors who kind of do the engineering. If it's a simple job, a simple
Hmm.
single family residential, they'll do both the engineering and the contract installation for you.
Yeah, yeah, very true. And you're right. There are some engineers that specialize this and probably do it often, and therefore for maybe not as much of, as high of a cost. But
Um,
I see one from Coral here at 146.
yeah. Oh, I have to go back there.
So, could my brother, a professional mechanical engineer, qualify to plan my retrofit? We actually look for professional engineer or professional structural engineers typically. I'm not sure mechanical engineer would work, but for single family homes, we do allow designers and architects to do the math. For project impact, the idea is you meet the prescriptive methodology and then you're good. If we need to have calculations, then we should probably have a discussion that's not related to the project impact. That would be an engineered solution. And then the other question there right after it, you have 3 full height and only 1 cripple wall in your daylight basement. That would not qualify as a project impact if it is a framed wall um, and not a concrete wall. 3 full height walls would, for a daylight basement, would be difficult.
Um, there were other questions about how to make the decision of whether to retrofit or
Hmm.
just to wait until the house collapses.
Uh,
That you got to make that decision yourself. I personally, I don't want my house to collapse, even if the insurance company is going to reimburse me. Uh,
the Office of Emergency Management has several contractors who go out and do classes on this, or did before COVID happened. And one of the questions that comes up often is, do you do a earthquake insurance, or do you do a home earthquake retrofit? And I trained under a person that really tried to avoid that question at all costs. The Seattle Department of Construction Inspection focuses on the construction. We do not focus on insurance. The um, insurance agencies change and their requirements really vary. You have to talk to the agency that you're currently under or talk to the agencies that you're looking to get earthquake insurance from. Some of them will offer discounts, especially if you have a reviewed project that you can show was reviewed by us or an engineer. But we're focusing on the construction. If you're looking to Google specific items, do a earthquake home retrofit, or some people use the word seismic instead of earthquake. You can do a seismic home retrofit or a residential earthquake retrofit. All of those will get you some hits, and will be one of the first places that you find them in most of those. But I would highly recommend starting at our website. Our website's under earthquake home retrofit. So that's where I would recommend starting.
One thing, well, a question that was asked a while ago that we didn't answer, but it's
Yeah.
Pamela was asking about if we could tell us the likelihood of a big earthquake, uh, that we're overdue for it. What's our family's earthquake prep status? Said to assume no water or electricity for 30 days. So I don't, we do live in a seismic zone here, and so it's hard, we can't really predict when this is going to happen. Do you have anything? Can you expand on that, Dean?
No, I don't have any specific dates in mind. But I will
Not to make
say,
light of it, but being prepared, having your
yeah,
plan
well,
is really
and
important.
being prepared for a disaster is more important this year than it was last year. The pandemic and other items have just kind of showed us at how things can really be stressed. And um, I think that the Office of Emergency Management has some general discussion on the likelihood of an earthquake, or if there is one, what you should prepare for. They probably have a better idea on time frames or what you should prepare for as far as how many days of food and water, stuff like that, that can be helpful. Um, we can talk in our Q&A about how to help make your house stronger. We can talk about how to make your house more seismically resistant or better able to resist those type of things. I can't really coach you on disaster preparedness or what when or how much that would be. We would recommend that you do have a home emergency kit, and the Office of Emergency Management is somebody that has some pretty good resources for that. You're right. I don't mean to make light of it, but it is something that is on all of our minds. Good question.
And Jennifer asked, let's see, is doing retrofit always voluntary, or can the city require it if you're doing a home remodel? That's a good
Ooh,
question. Do you want to take that one,
yeah,
Dean?
I'd be happy to, because I think I've got an answer for you, Jennifer. So yeah, the key word there is voluntary. If you're doing alterations to your house, the alterations are voluntary. If you do enough changes to your house, then it is considered what they call a substantial alteration. More information on that is in Chapter 1 of the Seattle Residential Building Code. And you can also Google Seattle code substantial alterations. But once you reach a certain threshold, then um, substantial alterations would require you to provide some improvements. The idea being is you're doing a lot of work to the house already. We want smoke detectors, carbon monoxide alarms, egress if we can get it, and seismic retrofits or better connections to the foundation become part of that. But that's only when you're doing a significant amount of work to the house, or is if, for example, if there's a damage and you're doing over 60% repair to an existing damaged dwelling. Good question, Jennifer.
Do you remember, I was going to put do you remember the tip? We do have a tip that talks about single family substantial alterations, but
We do. It talks a lot about substantial alterations to commercial buildings as well. I believe it's tip 314.
yeah. No, there is a way to get a subject to field inspection permit for a single family substantial alteration, which is
Yes.
kind of a new thing. I'll just put the one for the general. substantial alterations. Oop, it went away. Yeah, that gives you some information. Sumant was asking about brick veneer. Brick veneer is usually wood framed, so it could you could possibly use this project impact approach.
It's
Brick
possible.
veneers.
The brick can be a problem, but it's possible.
Richard asked about the a site that would show options of connectors specific to retrofit and specs for bracing of a pony wall.
The details on the project impact plan set offer some, but other than that, you'd probably have to go to the manufacturers themselves. Simpson Strong Tie is one of them, but there are several, and they each have catalogs that would go towards home retrofits. Can I answer the question?
Let's see. I think so.
Okay.
Let's see. Maximilian said Washington has the second highest earthquake risk in the U.S. 84% chance of Nisqually type earthquake in the next 50 years. A lot of statistics, and he provided the link to the emergency management website.
Nice.
So yes, we are living in a earthquake risk zone. So yeah, Jeff also recommended Simpson Strong Tie. They make a lot of these connectors. Okay, any other, if anyone wants, if you want to, anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, you can do that also. We've been doing it mostly through the chat, but.
How do I unmute everybody?
Well, they can unmute themselves, I believe.
Okay.
Somebody try to unmute themselves and see if it works. I've got allow and yes.
There we go.
Works.
Check.
Yeah.
So if you have a question you'd like to speak up, feel free to do that. Otherwise, you can type it into the chat.
Yeah, hi, this is Jeff. I had a sort of another question. I plan to convert my basement into an attached ADU at some point in the future. Does that have any impact on if I go ahead and do this seismic retrofitting, now in the next year?
It can impact the framing that you use for the walls, or it can get in the way of it. And then if you're doing enough to consider it a substantial alteration, then I would recommend getting either a project impact or an engineered seismic retrofit to make sure that when you do the ADU, you can show that you've already done structural upgrades that would meet current code requirements.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and I don't plan to change the exterior windows or anything like that. So let's see how that fits in.
Okay.
Do we have, Coleman had asked, what is the ballpark estimate for the price of fixing the California earthquake collapses that you showed? I don't have any idea of that. Do you, Dean?
I don't. Could you repeat the question?
What is a ballpark estimate for the price of fixing the California earthquake collapses that you showed? So, for example, that house that just totally slid off of its foundation.
The first one that I showed, and let me see if I can go back to it here real quick.
You're not sharing your screen at the moment, though.
But yeah, let me do that too. Boom, boom, and let's see. Share. Okay. So a good example is the house here. Can people see that now? It should be a blue.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So if I go back to, this is one that I use as a really dramatic example. But this here, the house is probably totaled. Um, the repair questions are really, is it possible to either pour a new foundation, move the foundation, or move the house? And that's a really iffy question. For stuff like this, it's interesting because the damage to the windows and even to the door are not that great. But you'll notice on the left here, just to the left of the door, this is a red tagged project. This is a project that people were not, was not safe to enter after the California earthquake. So that's a good question. The repair costs go up, especially because it's a foundation fix, that are pretty high.
Yeah. Talia did say this is most likely a tear down, which is echoing what you just said.
Yeah.
Coleman is asking about trying to get an idea of the cost benefit ratio. Should I retrofit or just hope that an earthquake won't happen?
That's a good question, and that's really a personal one there.
Well, Dean, you just bought a 100-year-old house. What are you doing?
It already had one before I bought the house.
You're kidding.
It had substantial.
The previous owner had done it, right?
The previous one did one, and I made sure that the permit was closed before I bought the house. So if you have, it's kind of a personal decision, and what I would recommend is get an idea on what the existing foundation and framing is, and then talk to somebody. Talk to a couple somebodies. I would recommend going to either a professional or a designer, architect, engineer, and then talking to them. You can start with a Q&A to us saying, I have a 2-story house, the foundation I'm not sure about. What would you recommend I do to try to retrofit it? So.
Yeah. I mean, we also have a 100-year-old house, and yeah, okay. Jeff said his estimate was $1,200 for do-it-yourself. As I'm recalling, we did ours when we first bought the house or soon after we moved in, which was more than 20 years ago, and it was, I'm thinking like $3,000 or $4,000, which doesn't seem like a whole lot for what it does for the house in terms of protecting it from damage. It looks like there's a wide range. Coral got an estimate of $32,000 for hers, which is quite a bit more. So maybe I'd get another estimate, Coral. That seems kind of high. But I'm not a contractor, so I don't know.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anybody can speak up or type into the chat. We'll be here. This event is scheduled to go till 3 o'clock, so Dean and I will be hanging out and can take any other questions.
Yeah. I think I will probably end the recording session, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Or should I just let it go?
I think you can end the recording.
Okay, I'm going to end recording now. Again, the presentation and the questions and discussion we've had so far has been recorded and should be available on our website. Thank you very much for joining us for the presentation. I'd be happy to continue to hang out. Amy and I will be here to answer Q&A, but I'm going to stop the recording now. Stop.
Okay.
And
Hi, Amy and Dean, can you hear me?